In this video, we are going to learn to compare fractions using pie charts. Apple pie charts. But not this kind of a pie chart, unfortunately. A different kind of pie chart. They're called pie charts because they really are round, and we do divide them kind of like we would a pie. Yep, just like that. When you compare with pie charts, what's really important is to start off by drawing two congruent circles. So congruent means the same size and shape. These two circles look to be the same size and shape. We don't want to compare having one circle big and one circle small. Remember, we want them congruent, so they should be about the same size, as close as we can. That looks pretty good. So if we're going to compare two fractions, let's say 1/2 and 3/4. This is how we would use pie charts. Because I have to show halves, or in two pieces, I'm going to cut the first pie chart in half, or into two. And you do that by going right down the middle and cutting it in half just like that. And because I'm showing 1 out of 2, it's kind of like saying I ate 1 out of 2 pieces. So this is how much I ate. Then on the next fraction, we want to make it into fourths or quarters. And this is how we would do it. We would cut it in half, like we were making halves, and then we would cut it in half this way to make like a big plus symbol, and that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4 sections or quarters. Now if I want to show 3/4, so 3 out of 4 pieces maybe being eaten, I would color them in like this, 1, 2, and 3. And now I can compare which one is bigger, which fraction. Well, the 1/2, I started here and I went around to here. And on the 3/4, I start here at the same place, and it goes around to here. So it looks like this one, 3/4, is bigger. And so we put that symbol there to show that 3/4 is bigger than 1/2. Let's do another example. Here's another example. Let's compare 3/4 and 5/8. So in the first fraction, quarters, I want to make quarters or fourths. So I'm going to cut the pie chart in half once, and then in half a second time like a big plus symbol. And I have 4 pieces. And I'm going to shade in 3 out of the 4. And that pie chart shows 3/4. Of course, you'll shade it in much more neatly than I did. I'm sure of it. Now on the other fraction, I want to show 5/8. So I have to divide the pie chart into eighths. And this is how you do that. You start off by making halves, and then quarters, and then you put a giant X in your pie chart like this. And you end up with eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pieces. Excellent. And the fraction, the fraction shows 5/8. So I'm going to fill in 5 out of 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now can you tell which one's bigger? Well, on my 3/4, I start at the top of the pie and I go around to here. And with the 5/8, it starts at the top of the pie as well, and it goes to here. So not quite as far as a 3/4. So that means that 3/4 is bigger than 5/8. When you are showing fractions with pie charts, this is really important. You can only show halves, quarters, or eighths. That's really important. Only halves, quarters, or fourths, and eighths. So remember, to show half, you cut the pie chart in half. Oh, that wasn't very good, was it? Let's try that again. Cut it in half. To show quarters, you cut it in half and then half again, like a plus symbol. And to show eighths, you make halves, then your quarters, and then a big X to make eighths. And notice that all my lines go through the middle of the pie. That's really important so that you have equal pieces. On the right hand side, I'll show you what not to do. If I was making halves and I cut the pizza or the pie like this, would that be equal? No, that piece is way smaller. I'd much rather have that piece of the pie, wouldn't you? What if I was making quarters and I did this? Cut it in half nicely, and then this. That doesn't look very equal, does it? This piece and this piece are way bigger than the others. So what you have to remember when you make pie charts is always make your lines go through the center, or as close as you can through the center. So halves, quarters, and eighths. Remember, just show halves, quarters, and eighths. Sometimes people get a little carried away and they want to show a fraction like 3/16. But it gets really tough to divide a pie chart evenly into 16ths. I'll give it a shot to show you what it might be like. Halves, quarters, eighths, 16ths. It starts to get a little confusing, right, with all those lines in there. So we don't want to do 16ths. We also don't want to show fifths, like 1/5, because that's really tough as well. Pies to be divided into fifths, they have special cuts that are really tough to make. So let's not do that. And if you're thinking about it like, ooh, I'm going to show 3/29ths, don't even think about it. That's crazy. Because you're going to start by making halves, and quarters, and eighths, and then 16ths, and then you got to make more cuts and more cuts, and before you know it, you've got this crazy looking pie that's cut into these weird shapes and weird pieces, and that's way too confusing. So please don't do that. Stick to making halves like this, or quarters like this, or eighths like this. Those are the only times you should use pie charts to compare fractions.